Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, I'm looking at you guys and I just see you ignoring me. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, that sounds more like it. Thank you so much for coming over to NBO Lead Fest day 2 or 3? Day 2, officially day 2. My name is Anyiko, as Alea just mentioned, and I'm very honored to be here at this wonderful festival for our first time this year. And I'm lucky to also have to be participating. So the panel I'm about to introduce is on digital storytelling. And most of these panelists in front of you, you might have encountered their work. And if you haven't, we will be talking about their work. It's very broad, very diverse, but all of their voices are quite powerful online. They've built a really huge community around their content. Allow me to read a little bit about the theme of our panel today and also their bios before I allow them to say something. So this panel spotlights creative voices working online today. Netizens have come to expect diverse, creative, and educational content on a daily basis. Kenyan content creators have not failed them, and especially in recent times, you know what has happened in Kenya. Merging culture and technology, these creatives have distinguished themselves through engaging digital content and amassed thousands of dedicated followers. Justine, right here, is a stand-up comedian, comedy writer, and and satirist. If you're like me, you don't have a TV at home, and you literally don't watch news, especially when some people are shutting down the internet. I actually saved some of Justine's work, and that is news to me. That's what I'm taking in. So thank you, Justine, for the work you do. She has performed stand-up comedy in Kenya, among other African countries, including Ghana and South Africa. She continues to push the envelope when it comes to comedy. She's also the creator and host of Fake Woke with Justine, a satirical, social political web series. She's also worked on various satire shows, including News by the Catalyst and the Farid Kimani Show. Makofi kwa Justine. Thank you. Next to Justine, we have someone who's also quite influential, and I've known him for some time, Richard Njau, or if you like, Astar. He's the founder and host of CTA. It's so funny. Magunga was like, this guy has made my data quisha. Like, we are on YouTube binge watching CTA. So CTA stands for Cleaning the Airwaves. And CTA is presenting stories of greatness, you know, and it has always had a vision to clean the airwaves through the use of culture-shaping icons to create, distribute, and promote media content with a positive influence. He's also currently the CEO of Mwapi Entertainment Limited, but apart from all that, he's a passionate and experienced digital enabler with 23 years of expertise in driving positive transformations through digital platforms. He's skilled in digital content creation, social media management, digital strategy, and advertising. Makofi kwa Astar. Last but not least is Magunga Williams, who is a creative storyteller. Makofi kwa Magunga. Wow, my fans. And he's quite multi-talented. I think, you know, when it comes to social media, you mostly know personalities for specific things. Like, she's into fashion, she's into cooking, she's into photography, he's into this, but Magunga is a little bit of all of that, and we love him for that. He's well known for his prowess in storytelling across different platforms, including his social media handles and the award-winning blog, magunga.com. He's actually trained in law from the University of Nairobi, but has been doing social media work for about 10 years now, thus created a name amongst his peers in the industry. Makofi tena Magunga. Before we get into the topic of today, we cannot fail to acknowledge the revolution that has happened in Kenya, in Nairobi, over the past couple of weeks. And I would even say months. It's not something that happened a week ago, 2 weeks, but it has been a revolt. It's been something growing, building up to where we are now. It's not over yet. But we have seen the voices of the people being heard on the streets, being heard on the Twitter streets, being heard on the social media. And I loved how there was a communication between those people on the streets and those at home. Those on the streets were like, if you're not here, make sure you're at least using your voice online. And that really did make a change. If you're not out protesting, you are protesting online. Or if you are not protesting online, you are sharing information that was very powerful. So I would like you guys to maybe first start by saying something about what you have seen happen on the digital spaces over the last couple of weeks. Some of you have been very instrumental in this and continue to be. So if you would just first recount this anti-finance bill and the revolt that we've seen happen and the power that social media has given to this specific cause that we had as Kenyans.
So, hi. So, the conversation, the huge chunk of conversation that actually spurred this movement started online, and I think specifically on Twitter. And then by and by, it snowballed and became, something of its own. As it were, the thing that stands out for me is a project that I was part of, in small part, but mostly started by Mike Mushiri, and it was about translating the finance bill into different languages. I remember when there's some time back, I met Ngatia, and he told me, you need to tell stories in Luo, right? And then I remember telling him, bro, I've never really needed to express myself in Luo except when I am talking to my fellow Luos at home and all those things. And most of the time we live in Nairobi, the language of expression is largely English and Kiswahili. But then here comes a position where Mushiri is looking for people to translate the finance bill. Most of my storytelling, not even most, all of them is in English. And then he tells me, he's looking for someone to do it in Luo. And we are literally in the middle of, was it the Thursday protest? So we take a break, we go up, find a place, and then I just narrate this thing in Luo, And I didn't expect, I thought it would get very little, traction. But then it became this huge thing, and it's just a testament of just how much audience we usually tend to leave behind because we limit ourselves to English and maybe Kiswahili. And it was important because now I get people who are messaging me and telling me, hey bro, najua ocha kwenyu. It was, because in the heat of the moment, I was like, I come from this and this and this, and we cannot do this and this and this. I cannot allow this guy to come and take this land. And then someone picks that up, and they've been sending it to WhatsApp groups. And you know how, I guess it's that the older generation love WhatsApp. And yeah, it went round and came back to me.
That's when you're viral, when the thing comes back to you, yep. And you see forwarded many times.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Astar. For me, the digital, the place that the digital has played in the ongoing revolution is amazing. 34 years ago, my grandfather went to the streets to fight for this country at a movement called Saba Saba. He was arrested, put in jail, got a stroke, and I don't have that history. I don't have evidence of that history in terms of pictures, videos that I can watch and see. So 34 years later, on Tuesday, for the first time in my life, I ensured that I was with the Gen Zs on the ground with my Insta360, creating content that people can view in VR, because that movement was absolutely amazing. I was there on ground with young people getting tear gassed, and at all times ensuring that my Insta360 was in the air to capture that, because this is I never want anybody 34 years or 24 years on from today wondering why this content wasn't captured in VR for the people that will be there. From a perspective of my platform, my generation is the millennials, and we are the scared, terrified ones who have been beaten to not act, who have been traumatized to not take action. I interviewed a guy called Boniface Mwangi on my platform, Cleaning the Airwaves. I have a YouTube channel where I have long, extensive conversations with culture-shaping icons. Boniface Mwangi, for those who may not know, is somebody who's been on the streets a lot. Let me just say that.
There are people who don't know Boniface.
Yes. No, there's people from all across the world here, so I'm cognizant of that. But let me say this. To see the change that is constantly happening, and to see the role that digital has played, especially in this country. I say when it comes to internet connectivity, Kenya is extremely ahead. But to see the fruits of that, to see a president begin to listen, to see the people, and by the people I'm really talking about the Gen Zs, be the ones in front of a movement, galvanizing a people through this gadget here called a mobile, it has been amazing. And I'm excited to see the positive change that is going to continuously happen, that is even happening today, and that will continue to happen. So excited about that, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Amazing conversation.
So I'm up here with people whose work I watch all the time, and as a comedian, usually it feels a little stupid to make a joke when everyone is actually doing serious stuff. So I try to use my platform to kind of bridge that gap where what we understand from the news and what is usually falling through the cracks is listened to. So when you go out to protest, because I was out there in them streets getting tear gassed too, and there's a moment where 2 tear gas canisters landed exactly where I was, and I was like, if I inhale enough of this and lose my voice, I won't be able to shoot a video tomorrow. So that was like what was running through my head, which is kind of a little silly. I was like, that's a point. But I was panicking that I was going to lose my voice, which was a little bit metaphorical. There are people who tell me, I don't watch the news, I just watch you. And then on the other side, it's uko na lawyer, which translates to where is your lawyer if you're going to go after the government. I'm like, I'm not going after the government. I'm just a comedian on the internet, and I'm trying to amplify the voices that usually fall through the cracks. So if this tear gas takes my voice today, it's going to be a little difficult to do that. And it was great to see a lot of Kenyans encouraging each other, because it's two people I've never met who picked me from where I was, and they helped me, they gave me water, they prayed, I think. I don't know what happened in those few minutes, but I felt safe. So being out there really felt like every single person was banding together and everyone was coming together to make sure that we don't lose that metaphorical voice in that physical act of helping me out of a situation, and also making sure every single voice is heard beyond what is usually presented in the news or even how we are often perceived. Yeah.
Justine, I'm going to bounce a question off to you just from what you have said. Fake Work with Justine is a satirical show that a lot of times touching on social political issues, and you've been very consistent with it throughout the year, whether or not is a huge protest, revolt, whatever the case. But I can imagine the last couple of weeks has been a lot on fake work with Justine, because there's been a lot to break down when it comes to the finance bill, what's happening with the protests, what's being covered by mainstream media. How has that been for you between going to the street and providing this content? And how intense is your research process? Because part of your content has newspaper clips, TV clips, and so on and so forth. Do you have a team that you work with to help you come up with this content?
Does anyone want to help me with research? I mostly do the research by myself. Not because I don't trust anyone, it's because I don't have the resources to pay someone to constantly help me with that information. And also, I have to verify a lot, because if even if it's 20 people seeing a video and they perceive it wrongly and the information is poorly consumed, it could actually make things worse. And then you become a source of misinformation or disinformation. So I mostly do the research by myself. But sometimes if someone sees something that they are doubtful, they'll ask me about it, and I'll go back and check what I'd read or like what I'd put up was correct. Usually I meticulously check at least 3 or 4 times, verifiable sources. I even call lawyers to be like, do you have a minute, to make sure that I'm not passing along any wrong information. And trying to match that with comedy, it's a little dicey, because I'm trying to make sure that I retain the tone of the seriousness of what's going on in the streets without losing the message. Because when someone opens a video, even if they trust you, they have to make sure that you're not making fun of them or making fun of the situation. So I try every single day to find a balance between what's the story and what information I'm trying to pass along, plus my craft itself. So I try and do that meticulously every day. So if anyone wants to be my research team pro bono, see me after this.
Thank you, Justine. What I find interesting is at the core of your storytelling is different themes. Like Magunga, we know you for your creative storytelling, whether you are traveling or whether you are doing photography or video. And Astar, we know you for stories that leave us feeling very positive, like leaving positive influences. And obviously we know you for the satire and comedy. But I wanted to ask you all, what is the process of your storytelling? No matter what you're doing, what is the process?
Well, for me, I wouldn't lie and say that there is a process. There's a step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3. Usually what happens with me is I always know I'll find something that I will see something that I find interesting, or a place. If it is, let's say, travel, I will go somewhere, and I'm not the kind of person to travel to a place and then sit at the hotel. In fact, accommodation plays very little role for me, because for me, when I'm going somewhere, I want to go out and explore, right? So if I'm going to, say, Samburu, it's okay if I sleep in somewhere, that is not too fancy. But so long as I go and capture the people, the landscapes, and everything. So that for me, then I will capture, then come home, sit down and edit, and then find an angle in which I want to do it. If there is some particular thing that I want to say, then I will focus on that and make it the center. But many times it will be just showing the place as it is. Yeah.
So let me explain what I do, just in case, because I'm cognizant, not everybody may know what I do. So what I do is extended storytelling. I sit down with who I call culture shaping icons. Those are influential people within various industries, and I have long, extended conversations with them, anywhere from 6 hours to 24 hours. So for me, it's a sacred thing. So I sit down with you and you tell me your life story. That alone is a sacred thing. It's a gift. It's an honor to sit down with somebody and hear their story from the day they were born to the present day. So I take it first and foremost as an honor. Think of your own life. Have you ever really done that? Very few people in life get the privilege and honor to tell their story from their own mouth, in their own version, to the world. Even you hearing your own story alone is a privilege. So there's a 3-step process. Number 1, pre. I have to, by the time I have decided who it is that I am choosing, there is a way and I begin to engage with the people. Because these people are already aware that they're about to sit down on my platform and begin telling stories. Some of them are aware that they're about to tell stories that they have never ever told in their life. They're about to talk about the most painful times in their life. They're about to talk about the most successful times in their life. So the conversation that I have with the people before that on its own is a journey. I explain to them, I let them know that I am not here to get udaku, aka what's the juice, the tea, but I'm actually here to get their version of the story. I explain to them that they have value, that the prime real estate between their 2 ears is of such value. Basically, I'm talking about their mind. Their life journey is about to bless people in 3 ways. It's about to bless them in terms of information, education. It's about to bless the people in terms of inspiration. It's about, there's people who are going to watch that video and are going to then aspire to be like them, especially the Gen Zs. So the pre is a whole journey that I take to them. Then the during. So the person sitting on my seat is the guest of honor. I don't do this for the audience. I do this for the person. So how I treat the person, I shoot my CTAs in 3 different venues. I buy a lot of food and very high quality food because I need to ensure that these people are constantly fed, that these people are constantly energized. While we are stopping, anytime I see the person wants to stop, I stop. We take breaks. There's a whole other CTA that happens when the cameras are off because somebody may have just shared a painful moment. They are crying. I stop. They reflect. They go. They get back to, I'll call it equilibrium before coming back. And then there's the after. Now I'm talking about the release of the video to the world, to the public. Sometimes I shoot a video and the person is scared because they have, and by the way, when I do that, the food, the treating them with honor, they open up and they share things without them knowing that they are sharing things. And therefore,
I was going to ask you, how do you make them share everything? There's the answer.
But I truly care. And also, let me say this: I'm not after content. I'm after the person telling their story. I truly care about the person, not about the content. The content is a bonus. But I truly care that it is an honor and a privilege for me to sit down with you, for you to tell the story, because that story is going to be on the internet for free for the rest of eternity. So I understand what it is that I am doing. So after that, I have, some of them share a bit too much, and some of them ask me, please cut out this bit. I do that. But I also let them know that bit staying is actually going to help people. Maybe, are you sure you want to cut out that bit? And sometimes I do cut it out. Actually, if they tell me to cut it out, I always cut it out. Then now there's a process of when I release it. I then begin to have a relationship with some of those people. Or let me say, majority of those people. I've interviewed over 100 people. And what that means is I begin to call them. Julian, I can see you. And I've had a CTA with Julian. Julian, shoot up your hand. Stop hiding. Somebody who's shaped the media and entertainment and strategy in this country. So let me just say, I then begin having a daily conversation with them. Every single day I call them. So today has your family found out the secrets? Yes, they have. Have you gotten a phone call from them? Yes. The next day I call them. Have your alumni called you? Yeah, they've started calling me and they've started telling me this. The third day I call them and I constantly begin to have a conversation and to walk with them because it is extremely terrifying for 99% of the people who come to the platform. So that's my 3-step journey.
For me, I try to center issues instead of individuals. Usually, when you watch the news, it's usually a us versus them all the time. It's like Kenyans versus the state, but at the core of it, it's just people who are trying to get by. What are the social issues affecting people? What are the political issues affecting people? And when you remove the voices of individuals, usually you can see people for who they really are. So when you, there's a story that I'm currently working on about the education system right now. Sorry, my voice is going everywhere. And when I was researching this, like before I spoke to some people, when I was researching it, it felt like, yeah, this is not going well. But after a while, it felt a little closer to home. Because like when I would speak to my sister about her kids, and when I'd speak to my friends who are just getting babies, and I'm thinking this is actually the future of education. This is actually where people are going to take their kids. So it stops becoming mostly about the individual. It's about what community, how are they going to get their kids to the next step? Is there any kind of longevity in this? And at its core, it's what is really the issue, and how can I make this funny enough for people to probably watch through and not be disconnected to how it affects them. So that's usually the process. It's like at the core, it's the issue. What do I really want to express? Over the process, it's been how the finance bill will affect people, but also what are the other bills that are also coming at us? Because it's almost like it never ends. It's a tennis match. You hit and you think I have an ace and maybe I can rest, but you have to go back again and keep fighting because you haven't won the match. And I think that's something that I keep reminding myself. Even if I don't fully understand the issue, something is always going to arise, and I need to continue centering the voices of the people who those issues affect, whether it's me or it's someone else. It's always important. So even if there's laughter there's still so much of it that's people being affected. So that's how I go through it. Yes.
Thank you. Magunga, I was going to say Magush, because some of his friends, we call him Magush. I wanted to ask you about the different themes of your storytelling, from fashion, sports, travel. You also work as an ambassador for some brands, or as an influencer for some brands you partner with. Have you ever got into a situation where somebody or some entity tried to pigeonhole you into something specific because you are quite broad? And how have you dealt with that, or how would you deal with that?
So, so the beauty of not being in one box is that I can always find a place to fit something. Okay, so especially when it comes to now brands, depending on what brand it is, I know what I would choose to highlight. And some brands are almost like diverse, so I can use music, I can do books, I can do travel, and what have you. Actually, the problem, the thing about being multifaceted is that even for myself, is a struggle. Okay, so for instance, I started this series on vinyl. Okay, and when I started it, I thought it would be a nice vibe, whiskey and vinyl. Okay, and the problem is that now sometimes I get overwhelmed with other things that I find it difficult to proceed. So I'm a one-man show. Of course, I have help with shooting from my colleagues, Peter Braxton, sometimes Goofy. Of course, I have help in that sense, but when it comes to coming up with a story, deciding which brand you're going to use where, that's all on you. And that's the thing about the digital space right now, is that majority of us are pretty much flying solo. So the same struggle that she had is the same one that I have. So for instance, with vinyl, so the series you did with musicians is that they come to you and they tell you their stories and whatnot. So for me, especially with vinyl, I'm telling stories of musicians from back in the day, because I don't know many who are releasing music right now in that format. So, for instance, with Franco, I knew Franco. I thought I knew Franco, but I didn't know Franco. I was unfamiliar with this game. So I went back and started researching on Franco Luambo Luanzo Makiadi, and even the genesis of his name alone, going on and on. It was such a long story. I didn't even finish that series, because it was so overwhelming. But to go back to your question, So you'll find, like, for instance, that series is a series on whiskey and vinyl. But then you get to a point where there are things that there are stories you'll have to tell about this guy you've researched and all these things. And you know very well this is your long-term client. So let me not use them here. Let me just do this one devoid of any brand, because brands have their own values, they have their own, ethos. So I'm like, I'll find something else to do for you, but for this one, I'm not compromising on this story, because for me, story is king. Yeah. So I'm not compromising on this story for the sake of the brand. So if a brand does not align with a particular story, it's fine. I will do it independent, and yeah.
Fantastic. I would actually love to open the floor. If anybody has a comment, a question, contribution, feel free. Thank you. Just introduce yourself and the question.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hi.
My name is Lillian. Thank you so much. I've been consuming all of your content. It's more of a thought. I'm wondering if you could share a bit about this question around archiving of content. I think in the this week we've seen with the internet shutdown, with the Twitter and some of these platforms being down, we are subject to the whims of billionaires, and this is where most of our content is hosted. So as we think long term, I think even beyond the Kenya conversation, we've seen even in the US, the big media conglomerates, just people are filming a movie and they delete it and just say it's not profitable. So as we think long term about, I think Astar, you talked about this living on the internet forever. What are your thoughts around how do we make sure that forever actually happens? And if someone decides Twitter is no longer profitable, TikTok, we no longer want this, or YouTube or this, where do we make sure that we, especially from the Kenya, the Africa side, we have a home for all these stories? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with that one. So when I started cleaning the airwaves, I didn't start it with the intention to archive the history. I started it because I was in corporate Kenya and I was a creative and I was stressed, and therefore cleaning the airwaves was my way to release, to express myself, to have conversations. I had been a musician for 10 years, and then suddenly I'm in the whole corporate world. It can kill you if you don't have a creative outlet. So when I started, and of course because I've been in the industry, and me and Anyiko go way back, because I've been in the music industry, I had a lot of networks. I have a lot of people who I've worked within who are musicians. And so they could, and these were conversations I was already having with them before, just that there was no camera on. So what I started doing is saying, you know what, while I have these conversations, I'm just going to switch on a camera and the audience is a fly on the wall. This is how I normally talk to these guys. I have no idea how to host. All I know to do is have a conversation. And I started doing that. Now, as I started doing that, musicians started finding the platform as a way of information, education, to understand the history. And then I was having problems in business, so I began to move from just the musicians to business guys. That was already a box people had put me in, but they didn't understand why I was doing it. But so I started to move to business. Now, as I moved to business, a new audience came. And I'm coming to your question. I'm just explaining the genesis. A new audience came. Different people, different demographic, older. And now they started really getting this information. So I was like, damn, I know a good way for me to make money. Let me put a paywall. And I removed all the content from YouTube and put it behind the paywall. And I got more messages that I've ever gotten in my life. People revolting and upset that I am charging them to access my content. And that's the first time that I realized the importance of the content with which I was doing. Also, as I began doing this, an older generation came to me and they were like, listen, I really love how you interview. Can you come and interview my dad for his 70th birthday? You don't put it on the internet, just give it to us as posterity so that different generations can watch. And I'm like, what? How is this getting to be this? So then it began to hit me with the importance of what it is that I am doing. That this is actually a Wikipedia for different people. It's the reason even why I chop my content in the way that I chop it up. Because search engine optimization, it's not just a podcast on its own. Because in years, people will search and they will find the particular thing that they will search. Now, I have been in YouTube. I worked for YouTube. So I've been in creating content from 2001. So one of the things when YouTube came in, I was one of the first Kenyans or Africans to begin putting content on YouTube. And meaning I had everybody's content. Musicians, this person, that person, this person, that person, this person. And what happened when Kenyans woke up, because as a YouTube enabler, it was my job to educate Kenyans, my YouTube channel went down because of copyright infringement. But thank God, because I had always known to back up all my content to a place called Google Drive. Now, to answer your question, I just wanted to paint to you the context. To answer your question, every single CTA that I shoot it in 4K. And I shoot it in 4K with the thought of the future, to understand that content degrades, to understand, even you can see I'm doing this in VR. This is 360. I'm even shooting for future. I have backed up all my content with the understanding that content evolves, with the understanding that if Netflix was to come to me today, I already have my content backed up in a way that I can change that. But on top of that, I am building my own platform. I'm building my own platform that is going to be, that people are going to be able to come in on top of all the other billionaire platforms, because I'm aware that the power of the content that I'm creating, that I've already created, I don't want to put a paywall because I can see the lives and the impact that it is having on people. So I will put it up on the billionaire platforms, the YouTube. I've started re-chopping up all the content for TikTok, 9-hour interviews, chopping them up, the whole conversation for TikTok, with an understanding that there's a different demographic that is not even going to YouTube that needs to access this content. I can talk on and on about this, but Anyiko is giving me eyes. So let me just...
So for me, the question, I post everything that I have online, in sense of like the audiovisual stuff is on Instagram, a bit of YouTube, but mostly Instagram and TikTok. So for me, I'm at the whims of those billionaires with regards to that content. But earlier on in the in the introduction, I was introduced as a writer as well. So my work is on my website. That one, I'm the one who owns. I'm the one who decides what goes where. The aspect of ownership of your own platform is an interesting thing. However, with the way things go is that you might, I don't know if I can't start my own social media, what is it called, app or whatever, something to rival Meta or Google, right? So for us, that is a big worry, because especially with things like Instagram, not even the fact that your content is going to be shut down or whatever, it's that places like Instagram determine what is going to fly and what is not going to fly. That algorithm messes up with people all the time. So let's say, for instance, I like to shoot my content in landscape. That's how I prefer people to watch my stuff. But then Instagram insists that even if you're going to showcase us these beautiful places that you go, the way we want you to do it is in portrait form, and we want it in 1.5 minutes maximum. That is optimal for the way you're going to tell stories. However, that's not how I tell stories. So as we are always in constant fight with these billionaire platforms, and we try to find a way around it. Sometimes we say, fuck it, man, it is what it is. If it's only 10 people who are gonna watch this, my job is to tell stories. I don't know how to play these politics. You know, I don't know how, because they are always constantly changing. Use hashtags, don't use hashtags. Do short form content, do long form content. Kidogo, they see a platform has come up, Meta wants to integrate it into their system. That's how we started with Reels and then stories and whatnot. So they're always constantly in competition with each other and constantly trying to outdo one another. So which means they're constantly trying to always change the way the platform operates. So there is very little predictability about how my content is going to be received when I shoot it today and 3 years from now, for instance. You get? The question will be, in 10 years, will you guys even be on Instagram? So the same way with him, I shoot my content the way I want it to be shot. I back it up. In the event that Instagram goes down or TikTok goes down, whatever new platform will be there where people are going to be found, I will move there. You understand? Yeah.
Thank you. Another question? Do we have 2 questions? 3 questions?
All right, thank you. My name is Roland from Uganda. So I'm in the platform business. I am trying to do something here with African stories, but it's not simple. That's the short of it. My question for the panelists, my platform is called Moado, by the way, check it out. So my question for the panelists regards languages, because I think they talked about them in the panel yesterday. What opportunities are there in the digital space for people who are into translation, who can translate your content into other languages? Because I think about like the early days, the Video Shack cinemas, and you know what they did for the movies and just translating them. So what are your thoughts on that? What opportunities are there? And what have you seen that's working?
So I think the best way I'd say translation is working right now is people are kind of mirroring each other. So if you have a story in English that someone feels needs to be told by another person in another language to reach more people, this happened for the finance bill, but it also happens in other areas, even with music, where some people will release a song and then someone will actually translate it into another language. It happened with Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. Someone translated that entire song into a political movement to pass a message about something else. And I think maybe we can stop thinking about it as how it will influence the work across, but how it will influence the work in layers. It's like maybe the translation will be different and evolutionary and change the way people consume information, because sometimes languages don't translate bar for bar. Like you can't translate one language into another because some words are not in other languages. So the interpretation and translation may vary, but the message will not be lost. That's at least how I see it.
Lovely question. I say for a lot of content creators, their barrier is this colonial boundaries that were created. So for me as a content creator, I'm Africa to the world. My whole essence is I want African stories to the world. So export Africa to Africa and export Africa to the world. I'm very biased on that. Now with that understanding, there's this wonderful thing called AI. AI is so beautiful and it is such a huge game changer. This is just the beginning. In my world, I create something known as timeless content. My content is never going to not be relevant, ever. Boniface Mwangi, for example, just as I interviewed Boniface Mwangi 2 years ago, but with what has happened right now, I started repurposing his content for TikTok. I am aware that AI is going to get to the place where I'm going to be able to repurpose all these 2,000 videos that I have on my platform into French. All I'm going to do is hit upload the video, and the video the AI will do the translation. It's already happening. It already exists. I am already doing this with subtitling. So subtitling is currently already happening. But the bigger question of all this is the mentality of the content creator. The content creator has to stop looking at their content creation and lock it to this 52 million Kenyans that we have here. No, you can see the videos that we have been creating are going global. I've been observing Jugush, who is a Kenyan content creator, and another guy called Crazy Kena. They have stopped talking. They have entered into essence of doing Mr. Bean things. And what that does is it suddenly opens up a new demographic and a new audience. So what I'm going to say for me personally, what it is that I am aware, because I know the person is speaking, I know it's going to be very costly if I have to employ somebody to do that job, and also it's going to be very slow. So I'm simply going to wait for the technology to catch up. And the technology is going to catch up within the next 365 days, where all I'll need to do is upload a video and write on that video, transcribe this whole thing into French or into Mandarin or I'm actually really desperately trying to break into the Chinese market, because there's a lot of revenue that is potential from hitting that billion market, or the Indian market, or exporting Africa to the rest of the world. But for me, my solution, AI. AI is my good friend.
I know Muado is, it's different when it's audiovisual content, yeah? Because for me, my work around fashion, around whiskey, and those ones, it's fine. But then, written content, Muado is written content, you know? Yeah, it also has the element of written. So, unfortunately, nowadays, when we talk about digital content, the written work is always, you know, sidelined. And that's just basically the way the world has moved. And when it comes to translations, when it comes to now written work, it's not the same conversation as probably him, because he will have AI translate his interviews, right? He'll hit a button, but I don't know about how that is going to work with written content. Yes, we have digital stuff and whatnot. When it comes to now language, and you are talking about, let's say, for instance, in Kenya, me as Magunga writing in Luo, that conversation about writing in African languages that Ngugi wa Thiong'o has always been pushing, and it has gotten its fair share of setback. For me, I say this. If you want to do your content in Luo, if you think it is important for you to do it in Luo, Kamba, Kikuyu, Luganda, or whatever, please go ahead and do it. It might not, for the moment, get that many people, but you're doing it not just, many times we create not just because we are looking for a huge audience, but because it is important to do so. So for me, I say, please go ahead. Do not really be held behind by what is trendy right now. We do not know what the future holds for that stuff. And our languages might be going, some might be disappearing, and it is important for us to archive that piece of our culture. So I say you do it because it is important for you to do so. Yeah.
Thank you. We have unfortunately come to the end of the panel. It's fine. We'll take the last question and wrap it up.
Thank you. So my name is Nyarinda. My question goes specifically to Magunga. Mine is about cancel culture. I saw recently that you, amongst other influencers, chose a stand and said, we are not going to work with the green platform that I won't mention here today. And I'd just like to know if, for example, we are extending grace to influencers if they do something bad. Isn't that grace supposed to be extended to platforms that give you a chance to earn money, especially since I think that green platform is one of the biggest payers and one of the biggest advertisers in this industry? And while you took that stand, is it from a legal standpoint whereby they'd already given you another contract and you said, I'm not gonna do this anymore? And how do you think that's going to affect your life going forward, considering there are other people who would want to work with you, but you're choosing not to be politically correct? And thank you for that.
I was dreading that question. When you started talking, there was a point I thought you were going there. Anyway, so here's the thing. I think there are places where we need to draw lines, okay? When you come and say that you switched off the internet, in the middle of, when you say that internet went lost, but then it actually didn't, and it conveniently went off at around 5:30, came back just in time for us to hear the president speaking. And in the middle of all this, we are in the middle of a very important conversation as a country where people's lives have been lost, people have been killed. And in the middle of all this, something terrible was happening in Githurai where people were shot, and we are getting reports about how they cleaned up, took people to city mortuary so that the death toll cannot be that high. I think there's a point where we can draw lines, where you go like, there are things you can do that we can forgive, but then there are things that you honestly should not be able to get away with. And so my decision to do that is something that I decided to walk away from them. It's not an easy decision also, because I'd been working with the company for over 10 years, okay? Let me see, no, they were not my first paycheck, but they were amongst the first people I worked with. However, I will also say this, that the same people I started with 10 years, 12 years ago are not the same people at the company that probably were doing this. So my history with the company does not, with the people at the company does not go back 10 years, it's with the company itself. I don't know if that makes sense. However, you're asking about, so the grace that you could extend, you can extend grace to a particular point, but then where people are losing their lives when this is a critical moment in history, and then you pull a stunt like that, that's not. For me as a person, or in my own capacity, I decided to part ways. Now, what does that mean for me as a content creator? Will I get more jobs? I mean, it is what it is, yeah? So we say we do it scared, you do it afraid, but you do it nonetheless. So if it means I will lose a bag, then that's fine. Though with these two good hands and this head on my shoulders, I don't think I will sleep hungry in this city. I will always find a way to earn a living. Yeah. I do not hold anything against anybody else or any other content creator who continues to work with the company. I will not hold anything against them. It is their choice. These are not things that you have to force. And when I said that, I saw a few other people also came up and, took that same stand. We were not that many, but the few that we are, let the record show that we did not stand up for this bullshit.
It is on that note that we finish off this session. I want to thank you all for your patience, your time, for your questions, and for following these people and interacting with them on their social media. I would also like to thank NBO Litfest for this amazing opportunity they've given us all to share our stories. And last but not least, please applause to our amazing storytellers. Thank you, guys.